I found a hidden key in my late mother's diary. When I used it, I opened a room no one knew existed. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. My mother died on a Tuesday. I remember that detail because she always hated Tuesdays. She used to say they were the forgotten middle child of the week, wedged between Monday's fresh start and Wednesday's hump day hope. She'd make a face whenever someone scheduled something important on a Tuesday, as if the universe itself should know better. The irony wasn't lost on me when the hospital called at 4:47 a.m. on that particular Tuesday morning. Heart failure, they said. Sudden but peaceful. She went in her sleep, which is what everyone says when they want you to feel better about something that can never, ever feel better. I'm 34 years old, and I've never felt more like a lost child than I did standing in that hospital corridor, signing papers I didn't read, nodding at condolences I didn't hear. My mother was 62. That's not old. That's not even retirement age. We were supposed to have more time. We're always supposed to have more time. The first week after her death passed in a fog of funeral arrangements, casseroles from neighbors I barely knew, and relatives emerging from the woodwork with their practiced sympathy faces. My Aunt Linda took charge of everything with military precision, which I was grateful for because I could barely remember to eat, let alone organize a memorial service. It was my mother's house that I couldn't face. The small 2-story colonial where I'd grown up, where she'd lived alone since Dad died 8 years ago, where every room still smelled like her lavender hand cream and Earl Grey tea. Aunt Linda suggested we start going through her things within the first month, before grief paralyzed me completely. It's better to do it while you still have the energy, she said, squeezing my hand across her kitchen table. Trust me, honey. I waited 2 years after your Uncle Frank passed, and by then, I couldn't bring myself to touch anything. His closet stayed exactly as it was until I finally sold the house. So 3 weeks after the funeral, I found myself standing in my childhood home with a box of garbage bags and a heart full of dread. The house felt different without her. Not empty, exactly. More like it was holding its breath, waiting for her to come back and animate it again. I walked through each room slowly, letting my fingers trail across familiar surfaces. The kitchen counter where she'd taught me to knead bread dough. The living room couch where we'd watched countless movies, her providing running commentary on costume design and historical inaccuracies. The reading nook by the bay window where she'd spend Sunday afternoons with a book and a glass of white wine. My mother had been a high school English teacher for 37 years. She retired just 2 years ago, finally free to travel and garden and do all the things she'd postponed while raising me and caring for Dad through his long illness. She'd been planning a trip to Scotland. The brochures were still on her desk, bookmarked and annotated in her precise handwriting. I started with the easy things. Clothes, kitchen items, books that could be donated to the library where she'd volunteered. But even the simple task of packing away her sweaters left me sobbing into a cardigan that still held her scent. Each item felt like I was erasing her, piece by piece. It took me 4 days to work up the courage to tackle her bedroom. The room was exactly as she'd left it. Bed neatly made with the quilt her mother had sewn. Reading glasses on the nightstand next to a half-finished mystery novel, bookmark placed optimistically at the midpoint. A water glass with a lipstick mark on the rim. I picked it up carefully, as if it were an archaeological artifact. In a way, it was. The last drink she'd taken in this room. The last night she'd read before sleep. The last of so many lasts. I sat on her bed and let myself cry for a while. Ugly crying. The kind where snot runs and your face swells and you make sounds that don't seem human. I cried until I was empty, until my head pounded and my eyes burned. Then I wiped my face with the corner of her pillowcase, apologized to her ghost for getting it dirty, and opened the closet. That's when I found the box. It was tucked in the back of the top shelf, behind a stack of old photo albums and a hat box full of costume jewelry. A simple wooden box, about the size of a shoebox, with brass hinges that had oxidized to a greenish patina. I almost missed it entirely, but something made me stand on my toes and peer into that dark corner. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was her, guiding my attention. I pulled it down, surprised by its weight. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light streaming through the window as I carried it to the bed and sat down. The box wasn't locked. The lid opened with a soft creak, revealing a collection of items I'd never seen before. Letters bound with a faded ribbon. Old photographs of my mother as a young woman, laughing with people I didn't recognize. A pressed flower, so delicate it looked like it might disintegrate at a breath. A silver bracelet I'd never seen her wear. And underneath it all, a leather-bound diary. My hands trembled as I lifted the diary out. The leather was worn soft with age, the pages yellowed at the edges. There was no date on the cover, no indication of when it had been written. I opened it carefully, mindful of the fragile binding. The first entry was dated June 15th, 1979. My mother would have been 17 years old. Her handwriting was different then, more looping and romantic, less settled than the practical script I knew. I started reading. Today I saw him again. He was working at his father's garage, covered in grease, and smiling that smile that makes my stomach flip. I know I shouldn't keep going there. I know what people would say. But I can't help it. When he looks at me, I feel like I'm the only person in the world. My breath caught. This wasn't about my father. Dad's name was Robert, and he'd been an accountant. He definitely never worked at a garage. I flipped through more pages, skimming entries filled with teenage longing and poetry and descriptions of stolen moments with someone named James. The diary spanned several years. I watched my mother's life unfold in these pages. High school graduation, college. The entries became more sporadic, more mature. The giddy romance gave way to something deeper and more complicated. March 3rd, 1983. I told James about the scholarship to Columbia. He was happy for me, but I could see it in his eyes. The fear. The knowledge that I'm leaving and might never come back. He asked me to stay. He actually got down on one knee in his garage, covered in motor oil, and asked me to marry him instead of going to New York. I said no. God help me, I said no, and I watched his heart break in real time. But I can't stay here. I can't be that girl who gives up her dreams for a boy, no matter how much I love him. And I do love him. That's what makes it so hard. I sat back against the headboard, my mind reeling. My mother had never mentioned anyone named James. She'd met my father in graduate school, or so I'd always been told. They married when she was 26. I did the math quickly. This diary ended in 1986, the year she married Dad. I kept reading, jumping through entries, watching the story unfold. My mother went to Columbia. She studied English literature. She came home for summers and holidays, and every time she did, she saw James. The entries from those visits were intense, full of passion and guilt and questions about what she really wanted. July 20th, 1984. We spent the whole day at the lake house. No one knows about it except us. When we're there, we can pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist. No expectations. No futures pulling us in different directions. Just us. He told me he's been saving money. He wants to buy the garage from his father and expand it. He wants to build a life here. And I want to build a life in New York. How can two people love each other this much and want such different things? Then, in 1985, the tone shifted dramatically. October 12th, 1985. I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. I read the entry 3 times, making sure I understood correctly. I'm pregnant, and I don't know what to do. I haven't told James yet. I haven't told anyone. I'm 23 years old in the middle of my graduate program, and pregnant with a child I never planned to have. Part of me is terrified. Part of me is strangely calm. Maybe this is the universe making the decision for me. Maybe this is how I finally come home. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the diary down. I was born in June of 1986, which meant my mother was pregnant with me when she wrote that entry. But if James was my father, why had I grown up thinking Robert was? Why had no one ever told me the truth? I forced myself to keep reading, my heart hammering against my ribs. November 3rd, 1985. I told James. He cried. I've never seen him cry before. He held me for hours and kept saying, "Thank you," over and over, like I'd given him a gift instead of completely derailing both our lives. He wants to get married immediately. He's already talking about names and nurseries and how we'll make it work. His certainty is almost enough to drown out my terror. November 30th, 1985. I told my parents today. Mom cried. Dad didn't speak to me for 3 hours. They think I'm throwing my life away. They want me to give the baby up for adoption, finish my degree, forget this ever happened. They don't understand that I can't forget. I won't forget. December 15th, 1985. I met Robert at a faculty mixer. He's a PhD student in economics, serious and kind and nothing like James. We talked for 2 hours about Dickens and tax policy and the ethics of capitalism. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him. I don't know why. Maybe because it felt like a lifeline. Maybe because some part of me is still looking for an escape route, even though I know I've already made my choice. January 7th, 1986. Everything is falling apart. James and I had a terrible fight. He's angry that I'm still finishing my coursework, that I'm not focusing solely on the baby and our future. He wants me to move back home immediately, to start planning the wedding. But I need to finish my degree. I've worked too hard to quit now. He says I'm being selfish. Maybe he's right. I don't know anymore. January 20th, 1986. I've been seeing Robert, not romantically. At least, I tell myself it's not romantic. We meet for coffee. We study together. He makes me laugh. He asks me about my research and actually listens to the answers. He doesn't know about the baby yet. I know I should tell him. I know this is dishonest. But when I'm with him, I can pretend I'm just a normal graduate student with a normal life. Is it so wrong to want that? Even for a few stolen hours? February 14th, 1986. James proposed again. Officially this time with a ring he saved for months to buy. We were at the lake house, sitting by the fireplace, and he got down on one knee and asked me to be his wife. I said yes. What else could I say? I'm carrying his child. I love him. This is what's supposed to happen. But when he put the ring on my finger, all I could think about was Robert. What is wrong with me? The entries became more desperate, more conflicted. My mother was caught between 2 men, 2 futures, 2 versions of herself. I could feel her pain bleeding through the pages, the impossible choice she was trying to make. Then came the entry that changed everything. March 8th, 1986. I lost the baby. I stopped breathing. I lost the baby. There was blood and pain and a terrible, hollow emptiness. The doctor said these things happen sometimes, especially with first pregnancies. Just one of those things. Like my entire future didn't just evaporate in a hospital bathroom. I haven't told James yet. I know I should. I know he deserves to know. But I can't. I can't watch him grieve. I can't face what this means for us. Without the baby, what are we? Just 2 people who want different things, tied together by a promise that no longer has a foundation. March 15th, 1986. I told James it was a false alarm. I'm not pregnant. Never was. Just a scare. A missed period, a stupid mistake. I watched the hope drain out of his eyes, watched the future we'd planned crumble between us. He didn't say much, just held me while I pretended to cry tears of relief instead of tears of grief. Tomorrow, I'm giving him back the ring. I'm telling him I can't marry him. I'm setting him free before I destroy him completely. March 22, 1986. It's done. James and I are over. He didn't fight me on it. I think he knew on some level that we were never going to work. He told me he'd always love me. He told me to have a good life. Then he walked away, and I watched him go, and I felt nothing. Just numbness. Just relief. Just the terrible certainty that I'd made the right choice for all the wrong reasons. April 30th, 1986. Robert asked me out on a real date. Not coffee. Not studying. A date. Dinner and a movie. I said yes. He's exactly the kind of man I should be with. Stable. Ambitious. Compatible. When I'm with him, I feel like the person I was supposed to become before James and the baby and all of it. Is it wrong to build a new life on top of the ruins of the old one? Is it wrong to want to forget? The next several months documented my mother's relationship with Robert. My father. The man who raised me. They fell in love, or something like it. She transferred her graduate work to a program closer to where he'd gotten a job. They moved in together. By December, they were engaged. December 24th, 1986. Robert proposed tonight. We were at his parents' house for Christmas Eve, and he got down on one knee in front of the whole family. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I love him. I think I love him. He's good and kind, and he makes me feel safe. That's what love is, isn't it? Not the wild, desperate passion I had with James, but something calmer. Something sustainable. I can build a life with Robert. A good life. A stable life. The life I always planned to have. I just wish I didn't still dream about James sometimes. I wish I didn't wonder what might have been if I hadn't lost the baby. But I can't think about that. I won't think about that. That part of my life is over. I'm moving forward. I'm choosing happiness. I'm choosing the future I deserve. There were only a few more entries after that. Wedding planning. The ceremony. Moving into their first apartment. Then one final entry, dated June 15th, 1987. Today is my 25th birthday. I'm married. I have a job I love. I have a husband who adores me. By every measure, I should be happy. And I am happy. Most of the time. But sometimes, late at night when Robert is asleep, I let myself remember. I let myself feel everything I've spent a year pushing down. The grief, the loss, the what-ifs. I think about James and wonder if he's moved on. I think about the baby I lost and imagine what they would have been like. A girl, maybe. With dark hair and his smile. I'll never know. That's the hardest part. Not knowing. Not being able to grieve properly because no one knows there's anything to grieve. This diary is the only place I can be honest. The only place where both versions of me can exist. The woman I am and the woman I might have been. I'm putting this away now. Closing this chapter. When I come back to these pages someday, maybe I'll understand why I had to make the choices I made. Maybe I'll be able to forgive myself for all the ways I failed. For now, I'm just trying to move forward. One day at a time. That was the last entry. I sat there for a long time, the diary heavy in my lap, trying to process what I'd just read. My mother had been pregnant before me. She'd lost a baby. She'd been engaged to someone else. She'd built her entire life with my father on the foundation of grief and secrets and roads not taken. Did my father know any of this? Had she ever told him about James? About the pregnancy? About the miscarriage? Or had she carried these secrets alone for 38 years? I looked at the other items in the box. The letters were from James, I realized. Love letters from their time together. The photographs showed them as teenagers, wrapped around each other, grinning at the camera with the unself-conscious joy of first love. The pressed flower was probably from some significant moment I'd never know about. Each item a piece of the story she'd locked away. But there was something else in the box, something I'd almost missed. Taped to the inside of the lid was a small envelope, yellowed with age. My name was written on it in my mother's handwriting. The mature version, the one I knew. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter and a small brass key. My darling girl, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't ready to leave you yet. Sorry for all the conversations we'll never have. Sorry for all the ways I failed to prepare you for life without me. I've thought about destroying this box 1,000 times. Every time I look at it, I tell myself I should burn it all. Let the past stay buried where it belongs. But I can't. These are pieces of who I was before I became your mother. Before I became Robert's wife. These are the parts of me I never showed anyone. And I want you to know them. I want you to understand that your mother was a full, complicated person who made mistakes and loved unwisely, and sometimes didn't know what the hell she was doing. I lost a baby before I had you. I've never told anyone that, not even your father. It was early, barely 2 months along, but it felt like losing my entire future. The father was someone I loved desperately when I was young, someone who wanted a different life than I did. When I lost the pregnancy, I used it as an excuse to end things. I told myself it was the right decision. I told myself I was choosing the life I was meant to have. Then I met your father, and I fell in love again. A different kind of love. Steadier, safer. With Robert, I could breathe. I could think. I could become the person I'd worked so hard to be. We built a good life together. He was a wonderful husband and an amazing father to you. I never regretted marrying him. I need you to know that. But I also never stopped thinking about James, about the baby I lost, about the road not taken. I don't know if that makes me a bad person or just a human one. The key in this envelope opens a door in the house. A door you've never noticed because I made sure you wouldn't. It's hidden behind the bookshelf in my study. The one with all my old teaching materials. Pull the shelf away from the wall and you'll see it. Inside that room is everything else I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Everything I couldn't forget, no matter how hard I tried. I'm giving you this choice. You can open that door and see all of me. The good and the bad and the messy parts I kept hidden. Or you can take this key and throw it away. And remember me as the mother who made you breakfast every morning and helped you with your homework and told you that you could be anything you wanted to be. Either way, know that I loved you more than anything in this world. You were my second chance, my redemption. The best thing I ever did. Whatever secrets I kept, whatever pieces of myself I locked away, they were never about you. You were never the consolation prize. You were always the goal. All my love, always and forever, Mom. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I folded it carefully, picked up the key, and went to her study. The room hadn't been touched since her death. It still smelled like her, a mixture of old books and the vanilla candles she loved. The bookshelf she mentioned was against the far wall, crammed with teaching materials, classic literature, and a lifetime collection of favorites. It was a massive piece of furniture, solid oak, and I'd never questioned its placement or what might be behind it. I started pulling books off the shelves, stacking them on the floor. Then I grabbed the edge of the bookcase and pulled. It didn't budge. I tried again, putting my full weight into it, and felt it shift slightly. There were wheels on the bottom, I realized. It was designed to move. It took me 10 minutes of sweating and swearing, but I finally managed to angle the bookshelf away from the wall. And there, hidden in the shadows, was a door. It was narrow, barely wider than my shoulders, and painted the same cream color as the walls. You'd never notice it unless you were looking for it. The brass keyhole was small and tarnished with age. I stood there for a long moment, key in hand, thinking about my mother's letter. About the choice she'd given me. I could walk away right now. I could put the bookshelf back and pretend I'd never found any of this. I could remember her the way I always had, without complications or contradictions. But I'd never been good at leaving mysteries unsolved. And more than that, I wanted to know her. All of her. The woman behind the mother. I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, as if it had been oiled recently. The door swung open on silent hinges. The room beyond was small, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet. No windows. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, operated by a pull chain. I tugged it, and soft yellow light filled the space. It was like stepping into a museum of my mother's secret life. The walls were covered in photographs. James at 17, 20, 25. My mother with him. Their bodies always touching, always turned toward each other. Candid shots and posed portraits, black and white and faded color. A visual timeline of a relationship I never knew existed. There was a small desk against one wall with a comfortable chair. On the desk sat a wooden box containing more letters, all from James. I picked one up at random, postmarked 1990. 4 years after they'd supposedly ended things. I opened it with trembling hands. Emily, I know I shouldn't write to you. I know you're married now, living a completely different life. But I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about everything we lost. I drive past your old house sometimes, even though I know you're not there anymore. I guess I'm hoping to feel close to you somehow. Stupid, right? I'm engaged. Her name is Sarah. She's nice. She makes me laugh. She'll be a good wife, but she's not you. No one will ever be you. I hope you're happy, Em. I hope Robert treats you the way you deserve. I hope you got everything you wanted. And I hope sometimes you think of me too. Of what we had. Of what we lost. Always yours, James. There were dozens more letters like this, spanning years, decades. My mother and James had never completely let go of each other. They'd maintained some kind of correspondence, some thread of connection that persisted through marriages and moves and all the accumulated years of separate lives. There was a map on the wall with a single location circled in red. A lake house about 2 hours from here. The same lake house mentioned in the diary. Coordinates were written neatly below it, along with the words, "Our place, always." On a small shelf, I found photo albums. Not of James and my mother, but of other people. A man who looked like James, but older, with gray at his temples. A woman, pretty and smiling, her arm around his shoulders. Children, teenagers, adults with their own children. An entire family tree I didn't recognize. It took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. This was James's family. His life after my mother. She'd been keeping track of him all these years, watching him from a distance. Making sure he was happy, maybe. Or torturing herself with what might have been. But the most striking thing in the room was the painting hanging on the wall opposite the door. It was large, maybe 3 feet by 4 feet, and it showed a woman sitting by a window, looking out at a landscape of rolling hills and distant water. The woman was my mother, younger but unmistakably her. And she was pregnant. I stared at it for a long time, trying to understand. The painting was beautiful and sad, the woman's face full of complicated emotions I couldn't quite name. Longing, fear, hope, grief. Had James painted this? Had she commissioned it as some kind of memorial to the child she'd lost? I checked the corner for a signature and found initials. J.M. James, then. James had painted her pregnant with his child, and she'd kept it hidden in this room for 38 years. I sank into the desk chair, overwhelmed. This wasn't just a collection of memories. This was a shrine. A secret space where my mother could be the person she'd been before she became who everyone needed her to be. Where she could grieve the losses no one else knew about. Where she could love someone other than my father, even if only in memory. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was hurt that she'd kept so much hidden. Part of me was awed by the weight of the secrets she'd carried. Part of me was sad for her, for the compromises she'd made, for the pieces of herself she'd had to lock away. I pulled out my phone. It was nearly midnight. I'd been in this house for 14 hours, and I felt like I'd lived several lifetimes. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Aunt Linda's number. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Sarah? Honey, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "I found something," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. "In Mom's house. I need to talk to you about it." "What kind of something?" "Did you know Mom was engaged before she married Dad?" There was a long silence. Then carefully, Where are you right now? Mom's study. There's a hidden room. Did you know about this? I'm coming over, Aunt Linda said. Don't touch anything else. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the hidden room, surrounded by my mother's secrets, and waited. The photographs watched me from the walls, frozen moments of joy and youth and love. So much love. More than I'd realized a person could carry. Aunt Linda arrived in 15 minutes, still in her pajamas with a coat thrown over them. I heard her come into the house, calling my name. I guided her to the study, showed her the moved bookshelf, led her into the room. She stopped in the doorway, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Emily," she whispered. My mother's name. They'd shared it, her and my aunt, both named for their grandmother. "You knew," I said. It wasn't a question. Aunt Linda walked slowly into the room, her eyes moving from photograph to photograph. I knew some of it. Not all. Not this. She gestured at the walls, the desk, the painting. I knew about James. I knew she loved him when she was young. I knew it ended badly. But I didn't know she'd kept all of this. She was pregnant, I said. She lost the baby. Did you know that? Aunt Linda's eyes filled with tears. No, she never told me. Oh, God. She never told anyone, did she? She just carried it alone. Why didn't she tell Dad? Why keep it all secret? My aunt sat down heavily in the desk chair, suddenly looking much older than her 65 years. Because your mother was proud. Because she made a choice to move forward, and she thought that meant leaving the past completely behind. Because she loved your father and didn't want him to think he was second best. Was he? Second best? No, Aunt Linda said firmly. Different doesn't mean second best. Your mother loved Robert deeply. Truly. But first love is different. It burns hotter, leaves deeper scars, especially when it ends the way hers did, with loss and grief and what-ifs. She picked up one of the photographs, a shot of my mother and James as teenagers, their faces pressed together, grinning. James was her wild chapter, her rebellion against the life everyone expected her to live. She was supposed to go to college, meet a nice professional man, settle down. Instead, she fell for a mechanic with motor oil under his fingernails and dreams that didn't extend beyond the county line. But she did go to college, I said. She did meet a nice professional man. She did settle down. Yes, because that's who she was too. She wasn't just the girl in love with the mechanic. She was also the ambitious student who wanted to teach literature and travel and make something of herself. Both versions were real. She just couldn't figure out how to be both at the same time. So she chose. Aunt Linda agreed. And then she spent the rest of her life wondering if she chose right. I thought about the painting, the woman looking out the window. She never stopped loving him. No, my aunt said gently. But she never stopped loving your father either. People think love is finite, that you can only truly love one person at a time. But your mother had a huge heart, big enough for James and Robert and you and all the contradictions that came with it. She just never learned to forgive herself for it. We sat in silence for a while, surrounded by evidence of my mother's double life. Not an affair exactly. Nothing physical had continued after she married my father, as far as I could tell from the letters. But an emotional connection that persisted, a love that never quite died. What do I do with all this? I finally asked. Do I tell Dad? Aunt Linda considered carefully. Your father is 70 years old. He loved your mother for 36 years. They had a good marriage. She made him happy, and he made her happy. What would telling him accomplish except to plant seeds of doubt about the life they built together? So I just hide it again? Pretend I never found it? I'm not saying that. I'm saying you get to decide what serves the living. Your mother is gone. She doesn't need absolution or judgment anymore. But your father is still here. So are you. What truth serves you both? I looked around the room at the careful curation of a lost life. She wanted me to find this. She left me the key, She told me where to look. Then maybe she wanted you to understand her, Aunt Linda said. Not necessarily to share her secrets with the world, but to know that she was human, that she struggled, that she made hard choices and lived with regrets, just like everyone else. I feel like I don't know her at all now. No, my aunt corrected gently. Now you know her completely. The mother who raised you and the woman who existed before you. The one who packed your lunches and the one who cried over lost love in the middle of the night. She was both. She was everything. Knowing about James doesn't erase the mother you knew. It just adds dimension. I picked up another letter, dated just 2 years ago. James's handwriting was shakier, the script of an aging hand, but still unmistakably his. Emily. Sarah died last month. Cancer. It was quick, at least. She didn't suffer long. The kids were here at the end. That was good. She went surrounded by love. I'm alone now, like you've been alone since Robert passed. Strange, isn't it? After all these years of parallel lives, we're both back where we started. Alone. I know I shouldn't say this. I know it's not fair to either of us. But I still love you. I've loved you for 53 years. I'll love you until I die. You were the great love of my life, Emily. And I hope, somewhere in your heart, I was one of yours. I'm at the lake house most weekends. If you ever wanted to visit, to talk, to just sit by the water like we used to. The door is always open. Yours always, James. There was no reply letter in the box. I didn't know if my mother had written back, if she'd gone to the lake house, if they'd had any final reunion before her death. But I hoped they had. I hoped she'd given herself that, at least. I want to meet him, I said suddenly. James, is he still alive? Aunt Linda pulled out her phone and started typing. After a moment, she said, There's a James Mitchell, age 78, living about 2 hours from here. Owner of Mitchell's Auto Repair. That could be him. I thought about the coordinates on the map, the carefully preserved connection. I'm going to go see him. Sarah, I need to, I said. I need to see the person she loved. I need to understand what all of this meant. My aunt studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but not tonight. Tonight you need to sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. She helped me put the room back the way we'd found it, carefully repositioning the bookshelf. We locked the door. I pocketed the key. Then we sat in my mother's kitchen, drinking tea and talking about her until the sun came up. I drove to Mitchell's Auto Repair 3 days later, my stomach in knots. It was a crisp Saturday morning, the kind of autumn day my mother had always loved. The shop was on the outskirts of a small town I'd never heard of, a cinder-block building with a hand-painted sign and a gravel parking lot. 2 cars were parked outside, both older models in various states of repair. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what I was going to say. Hi, you don't know me, but you were in love with my mother for 5 decades? Hi, I found your letters in a secret room. Nothing sounded right. Finally, I forced myself out of the car and walked to the open bay door. Inside, I could hear the clang of metal on metal, the hiss of an air compressor. The smell of motor oil and gasoline hit me, familiar from the many times my mother had taken our family car in for service over the years. Had she thought of him every time? Had the smell alone been enough to transport her back to 17, to first love, to all those summers at the lake? Help you? I turned toward the voice. A man emerged from behind a pickup truck, wiping his hands on a rag. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders that were just starting to stoop with age. His hair was white, thinning on top, and his face was weathered and lined. But his eyes were bright blue, sharp and clear, and when they landed on me, they widened. Jesus, he breathed. You look just like her. My throat tightened. You're James. And you're Sarah. It wasn't a question. Emily's daughter. We stood there staring at each other, 2 strangers connected by a woman who'd loved us both in completely different ways. I saw him take me in, cataloging the features I'd inherited from my mother. The same dark hair, though mine was longer. The same pointed chin. The same habit of biting my lower lip when nervous. She died, I said unnecessarily. He would know. He must know. I know. I saw the obituary. His voice was rough, gravelly from years of smoking or just age. I'm sorry. I wanted to go to the funeral, but... He trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. How could he explain his presence? How could he sit among my mother's friends and family and mourn her the way he wanted to? I found your letters, I said, and her diary, and a room in her house where she kept everything. All of you. All of it. James set down the rag carefully, his movements deliberate. I didn't know about the room. She never told me. He paused, studying my face. Why are you here, Sarah? I don't know, I admitted. I needed to see you, to understand what you were to her, what she was to you. He was quiet for a moment, then gestured toward a small office in the corner of the shop. Come on, let's talk somewhere less covered in grease. The office was cramped and cluttered, walls covered in calendars and invoices and photographs. I spotted a picture of James with a woman who must have been Sarah, his late wife, along with various children and grandchildren. A full life, captured in snapshots. He settled into a worn office chair and gestured for me to take the other. What do you want to know? Everything, I said. I want to know why my mother kept you a secret. I want to know if she really loved my father, or if it was all just some kind of consolation prize. I want to know if the woman who raised me was real or just a role she was playing. James leaned back, his eyes distant. Your mother loved your father. I need you to know that first. What Emily and I had it was lightning in a bottle. Intense and bright and impossible to hold on to. But what she had with Robert was sustainable. It was partnership. It was respect and companionship and all the things that make a marriage work for 36 years. But you wrote to her. For decades. You never let go. No, he agreed. I never let go. But that doesn't mean she was living a lie. It just means that love is more complicated than we like to pretend. You can love someone with your whole heart and still carry pieces of someone else. That doesn't make either love less real. She lost your baby, I said, watching his face. Did you know? Pain flickered across his features, deep and old. Not until years later. She told me in a letter maybe 15 years after it happened. Said she couldn't carry it alone anymore. He swallowed hard. I wish I'd known at the time. I wish I could have been there for her. But she was protecting me, I think. Protecting both of us from a grief that would have made it impossible to move on. Did you move on? He laughed, but it was hollow. I married Sarah, had 3 kids, 5 grandkids now, built this business, had a good life by most measures. But did I stop loving your mother? No. I thought about her every damn day for 58 years. Wondered if she was happy. Wondered if she ever thought of me. Wondered what our life would have been like if things had gone differently. Why did you keep writing to her? Why not just let it end? Because she wrote back, he said simply. Not every time. Not even most times. But every few years I'd get a letter. Just a few lines usually. Telling me about her life. Asking about mine. It was enough. Just knowing she was out there, thinking of me sometimes, that was enough. I pulled out the most recent letter, the one about his wife's death. Did she come? To the lake house? James's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, she came. About a month before she died. I didn't know it would be the last time I'd see her. She looked good. A little thinner, a little grayer, but still beautiful. Still Emily. What did you talk about? Everything. Nothing. We sat on the dock and watched the water and talked about our lives. Our marriages, our kids, all the years that had passed. She told me she had no regrets. That choosing Robert, choosing the life she built, it was the right decision. But she also said she was glad we'd had what we had. that I'd been important to her, that I'd always be important to her. He wiped his eyes roughly. She gave me something that day, said she wanted me to have it. He pulled open a desk drawer and took out a small wooden box. Inside was a photograph I recognized from the hidden room. My mother and James as teenagers, wrapped in each other's arms, laughing at something outside the frame. On the back, in her handwriting, were the words, "The beginning of everything." She said she was cleaning out her house, James continued. Getting her affairs in order. She didn't say she was sick, didn't give any indication she was dying. But looking back, I think she knew. I think that visit was her way of saying goodbye. I felt tears sliding down my own cheeks. I don't know how to think about all of this. I don't know how to reconcile the mother I knew with the woman who kept this whole secret life. Maybe you don't have to reconcile it, James said gently. Maybe you just have to accept that she was both, the devoted mother and the woman with a past, the faithful wife and the one who never quite let go of her first love. People are complicated, Sarah. We contain multitudes, your mother more than most. Did she tell you about me? When we talked? His face softened. All the time. She was so proud of you. Every letter mentioned something you'd done, some achievement or funny story. You were her greatest joy. Whatever doubts she had about her life, you were never one of them. Something in my chest loosened at that. I found a painting in the room. Of her, pregnant. Did you paint it? When I was 22, he confirmed. Before she lost the baby, before everything fell apart. I painted it from memory after she left for New York. It was the only way I could keep her close. I gave it to her years later, thought she might want it. Never imagined she'd keep it all those years. She kept everything, I said. Every letter, every photograph, a whole room dedicated to you. Not to me, James corrected. To her. To the version of herself she couldn't be in the rest of her life. That room wasn't about me. It was about her giving herself permission to remember, to grieve, to hold on to the parts of herself that didn't fit the narrative everyone else knew. We sat in silence for a while. Through the office window, I could see the autumn leaves falling, carpeting the ground in red and gold. Life moving forward, as it always does, whether we're ready or not. What will you do now? James asked. With the room. With all of it. I thought about my father, now living in a retirement community, content with his memories and his twice-weekly bridge games. I thought about the story he knew, the one where he and my mother met in graduate school and fell in love and built a simple, uncomplicated life together. I thought about what Aunt Linda had said about serving the living. I think I'll keep it as it is, I said slowly. I'll visit sometimes, when I need to feel close to her, when I need to remember that being complicated doesn't mean being dishonest, that having secrets doesn't mean living a lie. And your father? I won't tell him. There's no point. It would only hurt him, make him question everything, and for what? She loved him. She chose him. She built a good life with him. The fact that she also loved you, that she carried you with her all those years, it doesn't change that. It just makes her more human. James nodded, relief evident on his face. She wouldn't want him hurt. Whatever else was true, that was always important to her, not causing pain. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. Thank you for talking to me, for loving her, for being part of her story. He stood too, and for a moment we just looked at each other. Then, impulsively, he pulled me into a hug. He smelled like motor oil and Old Spice, and I let myself lean into it, into this strange connection with a man I'd never met, but who'd been part of my mother's heart for longer than I'd been alive. She was remarkable, he said into my hair. Your mother. I hope you know that. Hope you always knew that. I'm starting to understand, I whispered back. I drove home as the sun was setting, my mind full of everything I'd learned. About my mother's complexity, her capacity for love, her ability to hold contradictions. About the ways we shape ourselves to fit the lives we choose, and the secret rooms we create for the parts that don't fit. When I got back to my mother's house, I went straight to the hidden room. I pulled the bookshelf aside, unlocked the door, turned on the light. And I stood there, surrounded by her secret history, and finally understood what she'd been trying to tell me by leaving me the key. She hadn't wanted me to judge her or pity her or choose sides in some imaginary competition between James and my father. She'd wanted me to know that life is complicated, that love is complicated, that sometimes we make choices that are both right and wrong, both brave and cowardly, both selfless and selfish. She'd wanted me to know that it's okay to carry pieces of different lives, different loves, different versions of yourself. That you can honor the past while building the future. That you can love more than one person, more than one life, more than one truth. I sat down at her desk and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. And I began to write my own letter. Not to James, not to my father, but to her. Dear Mom, I found your room. I found your secrets. I met James, and I want you to know that I understand. I understand why you kept this hidden. I understand why you needed this space to be yourself, all of yourself, without explanation or justification. You were an amazing mother. The best mother I could have asked for. And you were also a woman with a history, with losses, with a love that never quite faded. Both things are true. You were both women, and I love both versions of you. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for the key. Thank you for showing me that being complicated doesn't make you weak or dishonest. It makes you human. It makes you real. I'm going to keep this room exactly as it is. I'm going to visit sometimes when I need to remember that life is messy and love is complicated, and that's okay. And I'm going to try to live as fully as you did, holding space for all the contradictions that make us who we are. I miss you. I'll always miss you. But I'm grateful for every moment I had with you, and every moment I'm still discovering about you. All my love, Sarah. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the wooden box with all of James's letters. Then I turned off the light, locked the door, and pushed the bookshelf back into place. 2 weeks later, I met my father for lunch at his favorite diner near the retirement community. He looked good, tanned from the community's daily walking group, animated as he told me about a book club debate that had gotten surprisingly heated. Your mother would have loved this place, he said, gesturing at the other residents chatting at nearby tables. All these people with stories and opinions and time to actually discuss them. She would have been in her element. She would have taken over the book club within a month. I agreed, smiling. Absolutely. He sipped his coffee, his eyes distant with memory. I was lucky to have her. 36 years with the most remarkable woman I've ever known. She made me better, made me think deeper, made me laugh more. I hope she knew how much I loved her. She knew, Dad. She absolutely knew. And that was true. Whatever else my mother had carried, whatever secrets she'd kept, she'd never doubted my father's love or her own love for him. The room wasn't evidence of a life unlived or a love unfelt. It was just proof that hearts are bigger than we think, that we contain multitudes, that we can honor the past while building the present. That evening, I went back to my own apartment for the first time in weeks. I stood in my living room looking at the space I'd built for myself and made a decision. I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not a letter this time, a story. I wrote about a woman who loved two men in different ways at different times, about loss and choice and the secret rooms we all carry inside ourselves, about the ways we shape our lives around our decisions and the pieces of ourselves we preserve in hidden spaces, about mothers and daughters and the complicated legacies we inherit. I wrote through the night and into the next day. I wrote until my hands cramped and my eyes burned. I wrote until I'd gotten it all down, all the complexity and contradiction and heartbreaking humanity of it. When I finished, I read it through once, then saved it and closed my laptop. I didn't know if anyone else would ever read it. Didn't know if it mattered. But I knew that by writing it, I'd made sense of something that had seemed senseless. I'd found meaning in the mess. 3 months later, I received a letter. The return address was James Mitchell's auto shop. Inside was a single photograph I'd never seen before. It showed my mother at the lake house, probably taken during that final visit. She was sitting on the dock, her feet dangling in the water, looking back over her shoulder at the camera. At James, I realized. At the man taking the picture. She was smiling, but her eyes were sad. The smile of someone who knows they're saying goodbye. On the back, in James's handwriting, "She wanted you to have this." She told me that day that if anything happened to her, if you ever found everything and came looking for answers, I should give you this. She said it would help you understand. She was right about you. You're just like her. Strong enough to hold the complicated truths. I put the photograph in a frame and set it on my desk. Not hidden, not secret. Just there. A reminder that the people we love are more than the versions we see. That everyone has hidden rooms and secret histories and loves that persist, despite logic or circumstance. And sometimes when I'm working late or can't sleep or just need to feel close to her, I look at that photograph and remember. Remember the mother who made me breakfast and helped with homework and told me I could be anything. And remember the woman who loved a mechanic with motor oil under his fingernails and never quite let go of the road not taken. Both versions were real. Both versions were her. And both versions loved me, completely and without reservation, which is all any of us can really ask for. My mother kept her secrets, but in the end, she trusted me with them. She gave me the key to understanding not just her life, but my own. That we're all more complicated than we appear. That we all carry hidden rooms filled with the pieces that don't fit the narrative. That loving multiple truths doesn't make you dishonest. It makes you human. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. I visit the hidden room once a month now. I sit in her chair and read James's letters and look at the photographs and the painting of the woman by the window. And I feel close to her in ways I never did when she was alive, when I only knew half the story. Sometimes I wonder if she can see me there, if some part of her consciousness persists and approves of my decision to keep her secrets safe while still acknowledging their existence. I like to think she does. I like to think she understands that I'm honoring all of her, not just the parts that were easy or comfortable or socially acceptable. Last week, I went back to visit James. He's slowing down, talking about selling the business and retiring. We sat on the porch of the lake house, the same place where my mother must have sat countless times, and we talked about her. Shared stories, compared memories, built a fuller picture together. "You know what I think?" James said, looking out at the water turning gold in the sunset. "I think your mother lived exactly the life she was meant to live. Not the one she planned. Not the one anyone expected. But the one that was true to who she was. All of who she was." "I think you're right," I said. And I meant it. My mother made choices. Some of them cost her. Some of them gave her everything. She loved and lost and loved again. She kept secrets and lived truthfully. She was a devoted mother and a woman with a complicated past. She was everything. She was human. She was real. And she was mine.